I died, choking on my own vomit in the guest bathroom of that godforsaken Hamptons rental. The taste of cheap champagne and betrayal burning my throat like acid rain on rusted steel. My husband, ex-husband by then, I guess had slipped something into my flute, just enough to make it look like I'd finally cracked under the weight of 30 years of playing the perfect corporate wife. The kids, they were downstairs, toasting his new life with my best friend, their laughter echoing up the stairs like gunfire in a quiet suburb. And as the world faded to black, the last thing I saw was my own reflection in the marble sink, Abigail Harper, age 58, architect of everyone else's dreams, reduced to a footnote in her own obituary. But death's a lousy editor. It hit rewind instead of delete. I woke up gasping, not in some ethereal void, but in the queen-sized bed of our Upper East Side brownstone, the sheets tangled around my legs like they had on that crisp October morning 6 months before the party. The alarm clock blinked 6:47 a.m., the same goddamn time I'd snoozed 100 times before heading to the office for another day of closing deals at Harper & Klein. My hand shot to my neck, no bruises, no phantom ache from where I'd clawed at invisible hands. I bolted upright, heart slamming like a gavel in a fraud trial. And there it was, my left hand, unlined by the stress fractures of chemo I'd never gotten to endure this time around. 52 years old. Pre-cancer. Pre-divorce. Pre-murder. The mirror across the room didn't lie. Abigail Harper stared back, brown eyes wide, that signature bob of chestnut hair still defying gravity without the gray streaks fate had penciled in later. "Holy shit," I whispered, my voice cracking like fine china under a hammer. This wasn't a dream. This was resurrection, raw and unfiltered, courtesy of whatever cosmic glitch had decided I deserved a do-over. And oh, I was going to cash that check with interest compounded daily, until every last one of those bastards bled out their sins. I didn't waste time on tears or therapy sessions. By 7:15, I was in the kitchen, brewing coffee strong enough to strip paint, while Richard, my husband of 28 years, shuffled in wearing his Wall Street uniform, crisp Oxford shirt, khakis that screamed, harmless prep school dad. He pecked my cheek, oblivious to the storm brewing behind my smile. "Morning."
Abes.
"Big meeting today." "Always is," I replied, sliding his mug across the granite island. Our ritual, unchanged since the kids left for college.
But now,
every word tasted like foreshadowing. I knew what came next, the late nights at the office that weren't late nights at all, the perfume that wasn't mine clinging to his collars, the offshore accounts he'd been siphoning my bonuses into for the past year. Richard wasn't just cheating, he was architecting my erasure. With Sarah Klein, my partner at the firm, the woman I'd mentored from intern to equity holder. They'd been plotting since the market crash of '08, waiting for me to hit my peak so they could shove me off it. The kids.
though.
God. The kids. Emma and Jake. 25 and 23. Fresh out of their respective Ivy Leagues. Interning at places that sounded prestigious, but paid in exposure. They'd clapped at that party. Hadn't they? Not out of malice, but because Richard had poisoned them against me first, whispers of my control issues, my workaholic neglect. I'd overheard him once. In this very kitchen. Months before the end. "Your mom's always been more married to the firm than us. Give her a nudge. She'll see reason." And they had. But deep down, I knew better. They were pawns, not players. By the time the paramedics wheeled me out, Emma had been sobbing into Jake's shoulder, begging me to fight it, Mom.
Stay.
Please. Just stay. Not this time. This time, I was staying for the kill shot. I started small. Because revenge isn't a sprint. It's a merger. Meticulously structured to avoid antitrust from karma. First order of business. The firm. Harper & Klein wasn't just my baby, it was my fortress. I'd built it from a two-person startup in a Soho walk-up to a midtown powerhouse handling billion-dollar real estate flips for hedge fund kings. Sarah thought she was next in line? I'd make sure she was lucky to land a gig cold-calling listings in Jersey. That Monday, I called an emergency partners meeting. We're auditing the books, I announced, projecting the spreadsheets onto the boardroom plasma like a prosecutor unveiling evidence. Sarah's Botox smile faltered just a hair, enough for me to savor. Routine compliance. I lied smoothly. My Midwestern roots lending that folksy charm that disarmed even the sharpest sharks. With the new SEC regs. Better safe than subpoenaed. She nodded.
Too quick.
Of course.
Abby.
I'll handle the prelims. No need. I've got Lou from accounting on it. Lou was loyal to me. Not to the corner office fantasies Sarah peddled over martinis. By Friday, the prelims were in, discrepancies in the client escrow accounts, funneled through a shell corp in the Caymans. Richard's fingerprints were all over it. His old fraternity buddy ran the outfit. Sarah had signed off on 3 transfers totaling $2.7 million. Pocket change for them. A noose for me in the life I remembered. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I leaked an anonymous tip to the Journal's real estate beat. Insider trading suspicions at Harper & Klein? The byline hit page 3 by Tuesday, and Sarah's phone started buzzing like a hive on fire. Richard called me at lunch, voice oily as ever. Heard about the article. Rough break for Sarah. You okay? Devastated, I said, forcing a quiver into my tone. She's like family. Family that screws you for a green card in the Hamptons. That night, over takeout Thai in the dining room, our date night fallback, I tested the waters. You think Richard's involved? I asked, casual as pouring wine. His fork paused midair, salmon flaking onto his plate like guilty confetti. Why would I? Just hypotheticals. Offshore stuff's his wheelhouse. I watched his Adam's apple bob. That tell I'd ignored for years.
Bingo.
He recovered with a chuckle.
Nah.
Man's too busy golfing with the brass at Goldman. But his eyes darted to his phone, and I knew the texts were flying. Sarah to Richard. She's on to us. Abort? Let them squirm. I had 6 months to dismantle their empire. Brick by embezzled brick. The kids came home for Thanksgiving, a tradition we'd upheld since they were knee-high to boardroom tables. Emma, with her art history degree and barista gig, hugged me tighter than usual, her perfume a cloud of vanilla and uncertainty.
Jake,
the finance bro in training, clapped Richard on the back but shot me a sideways glance, like he sensed a shift in the air. The way I no longer deferred to his father's every quip. We gathered around the mahogany table, crystal gleaming under the chandelier I'd picked out in Milan during our honeymoon phase. Turkey carved, yams candied to perfection, catered. Because who had time for domesticity when you were rewriting your fate? Conversation flowed like the Merlot, Emma's latest gallery crawl. Jake's crypto side hustle crashing harder than the 29 market. Then Richard steered it. As always. Ups. Spill on the firm drama. That journal piece, wild. Right? I sipped my wine, letting the silence stretch like a deposition. Wild's one word. The criminals another. The table froze. Emma's fork clattered. Jake's jaw tightened. Dad, she ventured, eyes flicking between us. You said it was just office politics. Richard's laugh was a bark.
What? Me?
Come on.
Eminência.
Your old man's clean as a whistle. But I saw it, the crack in his facade. The way Jake's gaze lingered on him. Accusatory. In my first life, I'd let it slide. Chalked it up to father-son ribbing. Now, I poured gasoline. Actually,
Kids.
there's more. The audit turned up transfers. Signed by Sarah. Routed through your dad's old Cayman contact. Emma's face drained of color. Sarah? Mom's Sarah? The one who? Who what? I pressed. Gentle as a scalpel. This was the hook. Reeling them in. Jake leaned forward. Voice low. Dad's been weird about money. That investment opportunity he pitched me last summer? I passed. But he got pissed. Richard slammed his napkin down. Enough. This is family dinner. Not an inquisition. But Emma was crying now. Quiet sobs that twisted my gut. You always said Mom was the paranoid one. That she drove you to need space.
Space.
Code for the affair he'd confessed to in that sterile lawyer's office. Post-party. Pre-funeral. Space that led to my dope champagne and his tearful eulogy about my tragic decline. I reached across, squeezing her hand. I love you both. More than the firm, more than this house. But lies? They rot everything. To Richard, ice cold. Fix it. Or I will. He stormed out to the study, phone in hand. I heard the murmur, Sarah's voice. Tinny through the speaker. She's bluffing. We stick to the plan. The plan. Their masterpiece. Divorce me at the retirement gala. Freeze me out of the firm. Let the cancer I'd hidden from everyone, a lump I'd dismissed as stress until it metastasized, do the rest. They'd counted on my silence. My loyalty to the family brand. But silence is golden only if you're not choking on it. As the kids cleared plates, Jake pulled me aside in the pantry.
Mom.
If Dad's dirty. We got your back. Emma too. We didn't know. I nodded. Throat tight. In the endgame I'd lived. They'd begged me to stay because they saw through him too late. This time, we'd burn the bridge before he could cross it. Winter thawed into spring, and I accelerated the merger of my life with destruction. The SEC investigation launched quietly. A whisper in the right ears, mine, mostly. Sarah resigned for personal reasons, her resignation letter a masterpiece of non-apology. Richard doubled down, schmoozing clients at charity galas. But I was there too, in the shadows, planting seeds of doubt. Heard about the audits? I'd murmur to a developer over caviar. Stick with me, I'm the steady hand. By April, our accounts were separate, mine fortified with a forensic accountant who'd once audited Enron. His draining like a sieve. The kids visited more. Emma crashing on the couch after shifts. Jake forwarding me suspicious emails from Richard's advisors. Loyalty. Rewritten. But revenge has a way of echoing. One night, scrolling through old photos on my laptop, Emma's first recital. Jake's prom tux, I found it. Buried in a subfolder labeled Taxes 2005, a scanned affidavit. Yellowed with digital age.
Me.
29 and ambitious. Signing off on falsified invoices to land our first big client. Richard's idea. Back when we were partners in crime.
Not just marriage.
I buried it deep. Told myself it was a one-time sin for the greater good. But in the light of now, it glared. Accomplice. Had he known? Used it as leverage in their plot? The thought gnawed. But I shoved it down. Hypocrisy's a two-way street. I'd atone later.
For now.
The gala loomed, my retirement party, rechristened in my mind as Judgment Day. The plaza's grand ballroom glittered like fool's gold when the night arrived. Chandeliers dripped light onto tuxedos and gowns, the air thick with cigar smoke and schadenfreude. I'd invited everyone, clients, colleagues, the kids. Sarah declined, prior commitment, but Richard was there, arm candy-free, his smile a rictus. Speeches flowed, toasts to my unwavering vision. I stood at the podium, glass in hand, scanning the crowd. Emma and Jake in the front row, eyes fierce. Then Richard approached, envelope in his breast pocket. I could see the outline, like a tumor. In my first death, he'd waited for the applause to die, then slid it across the head table. Abigail Harper, you are hereby served. The room had gasped, then silence, shattered by the kids' hesitant claps, coerced, confused.
Ide krumplat.
Champagne flute shattering on the floor. And later, that fatal sip. Not tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, voice steady as rebar. 30 years ago, I walked into a dingy loft with a dream and a dubious partner. Laughter rippled. Richard shifted. That partner became my husband, my co-founder. We built empires. But empires fall when foundations crack. Murmurs. I pulled the mic closer. Tonight isn't about retirement. It's about reckoning. I nodded to Jake, who dimmed the lights. The projector hummed to life. Bank statements, emails, wire transfers. Sarah's signature. Richard's alias. Gasps turned to outrage. Richard lunged for the podium. Abigail. What the hell? Security, my call. Discreetly hired, held him back. Embezzlement. Fraud. Conspiracy. I continued, calm as a closing argument. My husband and our former partner thought they could rewrite my legacy. Serve me papers here, like some Lifetime movie villainy. But I served first. The envelope. I withdrew it from my clutch, not divorce, but his. Richard Harper. You are hereby served. Notice of dissolution. Asset freeze. And criminal referral. The room erupted. Clients bolted for exits. Phones out for scoops. Emma stood, clapping, not hesitant, but thunderous. Jake joined. Then the kids' table. Then the whole damn ballroom. Not for him. For me. He snarled, face purple. You bitch. You think this ends it? That affidavit.
Ah. The twist.
He'd known. Held it over me like a guillotine. But I'd burned it weeks ago. After digitizing a confession video, him admitting it all. Post-coital with Sarah. Captured by the nanny cam I'd installed in our Love Nest Airbnb. Ends?
Oh.
Honey, this is just the IPO. Cops swarmed in, tipped off. Of course. As they cuffed him,
He spat.
the kids hate you. They always did. Emma vaulted the table. Fists balled. We love her. You asshole. That's why we stayed quiet until now. Jake nodded, tears streaking. You begged us to play along. We recorded every word. Their beg from my deathbed. Twisted into ammunition. The ultimate reversal. They hauled him out. Sarah's name flashing on arrest feeds by midnight. The firm? Mine. Unchallenged. The kids?
They didn't beg me to stay that night.
They stayed with me. In the brownstone. Building new rituals over takeout and truth. But as dawn broke, affidavit ashes in the fireplace, I wondered, was this justice? Or just another empire? The mirror showed Abigail Harper, 52 and unbroken, but the lines around my eyes whispered of sins unexpiated. Revenge tasted sweet, but it lingered like regret. Still, for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I slept sound. Months blurred into a haze of depositions and detox, the kind where you purge not just toxins but the toxic people who'd leached onto your lifeblood. The brownstone felt cavernous, without Richard's golf clubs cluttering the foyer or his aftershave haunting the powder room. But Emma and Jake filled the voids with their chaotic energy, Emma's half-finished canvases leaning against heirloom furniture, Jake's laptop fortress on the kitchen island, screens flickering with market tickers and meme stocks. They didn't move out after the gala. Hell, they barely left my side. Like guard dogs I'd unwittingly trained through years of absentee parenting apologies. You're not firing us as roommates, right, Mom? Emma joked one Sunday, paint-splattered smock tied around her waist as she whipped up pancakes in a valiant nod to domesticity. Flour dusted her freckles. A carbon copy of my own at that age, before boardrooms sanded down the edges. I laughed, flipping bacon that sizzled like suppressed rage. Fire you?
Kiddo.
You're the only merger that's ever paid dividends. Jake snorted from his perch, thumbs flying over his keyboard. Speaking of, check this. Dad's Cayman buddy flipped. Full immunity for testimony. Sarah's toast.
Toast.
The word conjured her at our last girls' lunch, all honeyed concern over arugula salads. Abby, you're working too hard. Let Richard handle the stress. I'd smiled then. Ignorant. Swallowing her lies like vinaigrette. Now, her penthouse was under FBI freeze. Her designer wardrobe pawned for bail she couldn't post. Poetic. Really, the woman who'd styled my professional armor now stripped bare. But victory's a double-edged sword, honed sharper in hindsight. The affidavit haunted me, a ghost in the machine of my redemption arc. I'd confessed it to the kids over late-night scotch and study, the fire crackling like Judgment Day reruns. I fudged those invoices back in '05 to land the Tribeca deal. Your dad pushed, but I signed. Emma's eyes widened, not in horror, but understanding. And he used it? That's slimy. Jake cut in, pragmatic as ever. Doesn't matter. You were 29, building from nothing. He waited decades to weaponize it. That's not love, that's leverage. He clinked his glass to mine. We burn the past. Build better. Build better. The mantra stuck, fueling my pivot. Harper & Klein rebranded to Harper Legacy Partners, a boutique firm laser-focused on ethical urban renewal, affordable housing in the shadows of luxury towers. Pro bono for nonprofits gutted by gentrification. Clients trickled back, drawn to the drama like moths to a tabloid flame. The Post ran a spread, from betrayal to boss, Abby Harper's Phoenix Rise. I framed it, not for ego, but reminder, ashes make fertile soil. Richard's trial loomed like a summer squall, set for July in federal court downtown. I testified first, perched in the witness box like a hawk on a wire, The room a pressure cooker of suits and suppressed coughs. The prosecutor. A bulldog named Vasquez with a Brooklyn accent that could curdle milk. Walked me through the timeline, the affair uncovered via hotel receipts, billed to the firm card, amateurs. The embezzlement trail leading to Sarah's Vanity LLC. The divorce ploy timed to my imminent decline. MS. Harper, Vasquez intoned, pacing like a shark. Did the defendant ever threaten you with past indiscretions? I glanced at Richard, shackled at the defense table, his once lustrous hair thinning under fluorescent glare. He alluded. Once, post-gala, in my first. In the planning stages. Said I had skeletons too. But I chose transparency. The jury leaned in. A sea of skeptical faces, blue-collar types from Queens, tech bros from Brooklyn, housewives from Staten Island. Juries in Manhattan fraud cases were a crapshoot, but this one smelled like blood in the water. Cross-examination was a circus. Richard's lawyer, a silver fox named Hargrove with a drawl that screamed Ole Miss alumni mixer, leaned on the podium. MS. Harper, isn't it true you built your career on aggressive tactics? Those '05 invoices falsified, were they not? Objection overruled. The room held its breath. This was the controversy they'd salivate over, the Queen of Revenge, outed as a flawed founder. I met his gaze.
Steady.
Aggressive?
Yes.
Illegal? A gray area I regret. But bearing it for 30 years? That's not partnership. That's predation. Murmurs rippled. Hargrove pressed, but I countered. Ask your client why he waited until I was vulnerable to dredge it up. Ask why he doped my drink that night. The courtroom gasped, Vasquez's ace. The tox report from my accident. Richard's face crumpled, a mask slipping. Verdict came swift, guilty on all counts. 20 years.
No parole.
Sarah rolled over for a plea. 5 years probation and disbarment.
Clean sweep.
The kids threw an impromptu Justice Jubilee on the brownstone stoop, pizza from Luigi's. Craft beers sweating in the July heat. Neighbors peeked from windows. Whispers of, that's her. The one from the papers. Emma raised her slice like a scepter. To Mom, architect of downfalls. Jake grinned. And uprisings.
Hey.
Speaking of, check your email later. I crunched the numbers on that community land trust you mentioned. My chest swelled. A warmth I'd forgotten. Pride. Untainted. But as fireworks popped over the East River, Independence Day echoes, I felt the twist uncoiling. A call from an unknown number. Voicemail blinking. Richard. From Rikers. Voice gravelly. Abs.
You win.
But the kids. They knew more than you think. Ask Emma about the summer of 15.
Click.
Sleep evaded me that night. The brownstone creaking like old bones. Summer of 15. Emma's gap year in Europe. The one she'd cut short with excuses about homesickness. I'd chalked it up to millennial wanderlust.
Now?
Dread pooled. Morning brought confrontation. Coffee steaming between us in the sunroom.
Ink.
What happened in Paris? Dad's bluffing. Right? Her face shuddered. Green eyes, mine dipping to her mug.
Mom.
I caught them. Sarah and him. At that bistro near the Louvre. Kissing like teenagers. I confronted Dad. He gaslit me. Said you were distant. That it was my imagination. 15. My baby girl. Adrift in a foreign city. Witnessing the fracture. Why didn't you tell? Tears welled. He begged. said it'd destroy the family. And Jake. He overheard Dad on a call, coaching me to keep quiet for Mom's sake. We thought we were protecting you. Protecting. The word twisted like a knife. They'd clapped at the gala not from hatred, but rehearsed solidarity. Richard's script. Forcing their hands until the truth cracked through. Their begs at my deathbed? Not regret, but redemption's first gasp. I pulled her close, her sobs soaking my blouse. You did protect me. By staying. By fighting. Jake joined. A huddle of Harpers. Unbreakable. But the revelation lingered. A bike kink in my revenge vow. I'd avenged the betrayal. But the collateral, their innocence, chipped away years early, stung deeper than any verdict. Fall ushered in reinvention. The firm thrived. Legacy partners landing a contract to rehab derelict warehouses into artist lofts in Bushwick, Emma's brainchild. Her illustrations gracing the proposals. Jake jumped ship from his internship, joining as junior analyst. His crypto-savvy flipping distressed properties like digital gold.
Me?
I mentored, not managed, seminars for women in real estate, panels on ethical pivots post-scandal. The controversy? It sold tickets. From fraud to feminist icon, one headline crowed. I cringed, but clipped it anyway.
Yet.
Shadows crept. Anonymous letters arrived at the office. Skeletons rattle.
Abby.
Who's next? Hargrove's doing. No doubt. Stirring the pot for appeal. And Richard's appeals dragged, each hearing a reminder that justice in America was a subscription service. Pay enough. Delay forever. By December, as snow dusted Central Park like powdered regret, the real twist hit. A manila envelope. No return address. Photos from '05. Me and Richard in that Soho loft. Invoices in hand. Smiles predatory. But annotated, red pen circles around discrepancies I'd missed. Not just fudged, fabricated from whole cloth. Richard's solo op. Pinned on me to seal the deal. I'd signed blindly, trusting the partner who'd sworn, we're in this together. The note inside. Typed sterile. He played you from day one. Burn this. Or don't. Your call. Phoenix. No signature. But the postmark, Rikers.
He'd confessed.
From his cell. Architecting one last reversal, not destruction, but absolution.
Why?
Loneliness? Legacy? Or the twisted love that birthed our empire? I burned it in the study hearth. Flames devouring the past. The kids never knew, some bones stay buried. But as embers died, I felt lighter, not vindicated, but human. Revenge had righted the scales, but forgiveness? That was the merger I'd almost missed. The brownstone hummed that New Year's. Party hats ask you. Champagne legitimate this time. Emma sketched our silhouettes against the skyline. Jake popped corks with precision. To second chances, I toasted. They echoed, glasses clinking like fate's reluctant applause. No begs needed. We were staying together, unscripted.
Alive.
Spring of the new year brought blooming dogwoods to Riverside Drive and a subpoena to my doorstep, Richard's Hail Mary appeal, claiming duress in his plea, pinning the '05 fraud squarely on me as the mastermind. The tabloids feasted. Harper heist. Was the wife the real crook? Protests erupted outside Legacy Partners' glass facade, picketers with signs decrying corporate queenery, a slur that stuck like gum on Louboutins. Clients wavered. Emma's loft's project stalled on permits. Jake's deal scrutinized under a microscope. I could have lawyered up, countersued into oblivion. But exhaustion crept in, a familiar foe for my first fade-out. Instead, I went public, a sit-down with 60 Minutes. Lights harsh as truth serum. Yes, I admitted to the correspondent, a no-nonsense type named Lowell. I signed off on irregularities in 2005. Youthful ambition. Marital blinders. But my ex? He orchestrated from the start. Hoarded it as blackmail until it suited his exit strategy. Lowell leaned in. And the murder attempt. Convenient timing. Cancer diagnosis I'd shared only with him. Lie by omission. The lump was real, but undiagnosed then. Dramatic license for the greater narrative. The segment aired to Nielsen spikes. Public opinion swinging like a pendulum, from villain to victim, with a dash of anti-hero grit. Protests fizzled, permits greenlit. But the cost? Sleepless nights. The brownstone's walls whispering doubts. Was I the phoenix or just a fancy arsonist? Emma sensed it first, cornering me in the greenhouse we'd converted from the old sunroom, her sanctuary of succulents and sketchpads.
Mom.
You're unraveling. Talk. We sat amid terracotta pots, dirt under nails like shared secrets. What if I'm no better? The fraud. The revenge. It's all gray.
Eminência.
I taught you integrity, then torched it for spite. She snorted, watering a fiddle leaf with surgical calm. Spite? You torched a lie. Dad built us on quicksand. You drained the swamp. Her eyes softened. Remember Paris? I didn't just catch them kissing. He offered me hush money. 10 grand. Wired to my student account. I took it, hated myself for it. Used it for tuition.
Though.
Kept it from you to spare the pain.
10 grand.
My girl's silence. Bought like Black Friday markdowns.
Eminência.
Don't. We all have grays. Yours built this. She gestured wide. The firm. The family. The future. Mine? They made me stronger. Art school's not cheap. We laughed. Brittle but real. The first crack in my armor yielding to light. Jake confessed later. Over burgers at Shake Shack. His investment with Dad? A front for laundering small fries from the scheme. I pulled out when I smelled the rot. But the gains. I donated them. Anonymous. To women's shelters. Redemption's mosaic. Pieced from shards. They'd protected me by surviving him. Emerging scarred but sharp. Richard's appeal crumbled by June. Hargrove folding under the 60 Minutes heat. Final hearing, him in orange. Gaunt as a specter. Pleading no contest to lesser charges. 20 became 10. With good behavior dangling like bait. As the judge banged gavel, our eyes met, not hate, but hollow recognition. Partners still. In ruin. He wrote once. Post-sentencing. Abs. The note was my amends. Burn my copies too. Kids deserve the myth.
So, do you. R.
I filed it away. Unburned. Myths have power, truths.
Teeth.
Summer solstice found us in the Hamptons, not the rental of my demise, but a cottage I'd bought outright. Cash from the divorce settlement. No marble sinks, just shiplap and sea glass. Emma hosted a legacy luau, tiki torches flickering against dune grass. Jake grilling lobster like a pro. Neighbors, actual ones. Not society vipers mingled. Toasting to Abby. The unbreakable. Unbreakable? Close enough. As waves crashed, I slipped away to the porch, scotch in hand, stars pricking the velvet sky. Footsteps, Jake, bearing 2 glasses. Dad called collect. Wanted to congratulate you on the loft's groundbreaking. I arched a brow and told him to fuck off. Politely. We clinked. Salt air tangy. You did it,
Mom.
Empire 2.0. Not alone. The words hung, true as tide. Emma joined, sketchpad under arm. Group portrait, her pencil danced, us 3. Silhouettes against the surf. Lines bold and unapologetic. We posed, laughing into the lens of memory. No claps coerced. No begs desperate. Just presence, raw, American, resilient. But as charcoal smudged her fingers, a final echo, the affair's origin. I dug. Post-note. Through old emails unearthed in discovery. Not Sarah's ambition, but mine late nights birthing the firm, leaving Richard adrift in domesticity. His resentment festered, fertilized by my success. The betrayal? Not just greed, but grudge, a mirror to my own 05 sin. Twist upon twist, we'd both been architects of fracture. Forgiveness, then, wasn't absolution, it was demolition, leveling the old to raise anew. Fall deepened. Legacy partners expanding to DC. Emma curating exhibits in the new spaces. Jake pitching sustainable flips to VCs.
Me?
Semi-retired. Consulting from the brownstone. Ghostwriting a memoir, served, a woman's reckoning with power and poison. Publisher's bid. Controversy sold. Thanksgiving circled back. Table laden. No specters. As pie steamed Emma's gluten-free triumph, I raised my fork. To truths told late, and loves that endure. They echoed, eyes bright. No ghosts at this feast. Winter's cusp. A package arrived. Richard's effects from storage. Auction per sentence terms. Inside, our wedding album. Dog-eared. Jake's baby shoes, a letter. Undated. Ups. If you're reading this, I lost the plot. But you always had the blueprint. Raise them fierce.
R.
I donated the lot. Shoes to a shelter. Album to the kids. The letter? Tucked in my memoir draft. Footnote to frailty. New Year's dawn crisp. Brownstone aglow with resolutions unwritten. We danced in the living room to Motown vinyls. Spins clumsy but carefree. Emma twirled Jake. He dipped me low. Stay, she whispered. Not beg, but benediction. I am, I replied, rising. We all are. In that moment, 2 lifetimes converged, the choked gasp, the gala gasp, the jury's gasp, all exhales to this inhale. Revenge had been the scaffold, release, the structure. Abigail Harper, 53 and etched with every line earned, stepped into dawn. Not perfect, not placid, but profoundly, unyieldingly mine. The empire stood, not of glass and greed, but grit and grace. And in America's relentless churn, that was victory enough.